Hi, everyone, and welcome inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers. Gabby Chernoff, Chris Cartman, Jake Sloan joining you today. As always, we will have a review from the West Virginia game, last week's game, and then a first look at that Colorado game. ASU moves to 7-2 on the 7-3, on the season, and 5-2 in Big 12 play. We'll have a full breakdown of the scenarios. ASU still very much in the hunt for the Big 12 championship game later on in the episode. And quite a game at West Virginia last week. They delivered the baby, as Kenny Dillingham said.
Yes, took it home.
And Jordan Tyson still didn't play in that game. That was the news from today in his press conference. Said he's going to kind of start getting back to his conditioning, his full routine this week, and then they'll see where he's at for Colorado on Saturday.
Yeah, basically hamstring injury, soft tissue. Dillingham said that you can only do so much with those. You don't want to rush guys back. Basically, he's going to start running, see if he can get up to 90+%, 100% by the end of the week. If that looks to be the case, then we might see him. But again, they're not going to push him back a week premature. I'm not sure what's going to happen. I guess we'll have a better sense of that Tuesday, Wednesday when we see what's going on, if we do. I do think, though, that he is in pretty good shape to be able to play against Arizona, barring a setback, which can always happen when you got a hamstring injury.
Yeah, and amongst other newsworthy things, I mean, ASU fans kind of counted them out as soon as Sam Leavitt went down with injury, and it was said that Jeff Sims is going to be the starter for the rest of the year, but back-to-back starts, back-to-back Big 12 Offensive Player of the Week honors as well.
That's crazy.
That is crazy. I mean, if you would have told me that, I would have been like, you're funny.
Yeah, I have had the back and forth with Mike Luke in Tucson, the Arizona media member, about how he thought that Jeff Sims was garbage and couldn't play anywhere. I think when you win back-to-back Player of the Week honors in the Big 12.
One of them is an AP National Player of the Week as well.
And that, on top of that,
that
right?
as well.
That sort of shows that you can play football.
Sort of shows that you are in fact an NCAA Division I Power 4 level quarterback.
Division I player.
I'd be interested to see how many players this year have had back-to-back Conference Player of the Week honors. I think it's a very short list, if at all, a list at all.
Super rare. You got to go back to Cam Scadaboo way back in 2024 to be able to.
Another NCAA Division I Power 4 football player.
He could get it done too. So very impressive stuff.
And then Defensive Player of the Week honors as well. Jordan Crook, Arizona State linebacker, took home those honors. Crook and Keyshawn Elliott are 5th and 6th in the conference in tackles. Crook was a really good representation, I think, of how ASU kind of shut down West Virginia's run game in the final 3 quarters of that game, and they've just been lights out, consistent all year.
Yeah, I would say the run defense is probably a strength of ASU's team. And we expected that to be there. The inconsistencies with some of the big plays that they've allowed, that's been their bugaboo, I would say, on the defensive side. Crook 14 tackles. That was a season high, career high. In fact, 10 solo. Keyshawn Elliott's been pretty consistently good. So, yeah, those guys are balling out.
Yeah, and it really came after the first quarter. From then on, the final 3 quarters, ASU allowed just 11 net rushing yards on the game, 68 total. So a lot of that came in the first quarter, and then a flip just switched for Crook and the rest of that defense to hold them to just 1.7 yards per carry. And Crook and Elliott have really bolstered that back end of the front 6. We knew what they were getting out of the trenches, the best run defense in the Big 12, returning nearly every starter from last year to this year, now second in the Big 12 and run defense behind Texas Tech. And with Crook and Elliott behind them, it's really been tough for opposing teams to run the ball in ASU.
Yeah.
Well, AJ Cooper doing a really great job with that linebacker room. Before the game on Saturday, as all the players were coming off the field, they were all in like a line to give him fist bumps. He was kind of like hyping them up, giving them all hugs, and he's doing a great job with them in practice, obviously, as well, and it's translating on the field. There's another one. Jesus Gomez, is this the 4th time this year he's taken home Big 12 Special Teams Player of the Week?
I've lost count. I think so.
I think it's 4.
Game-winning field goals all over the place.
And he had one block. The first field goal attempt he had was blocked, and then he made it from 49 yards out to win the game for the Sun Devils. So just, I mean, kind of as expected from him at the start of the season, what ASU needed.
Yeah, and he had one blocked earlier in the game, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
his first attempt was blocked, and he had the game winner. But I think what really pushed the needle for him to win Special Teams Player of the Week, because 1 for 2 doesn't jump off the stat sheet. But what didn't show up is his fake extra point attempt that turned into a 2-point conversion to Cameron Harpole right over the top of the defense. Jack Noodle went to Kenny Dillingham earlier in the week, and he said he saw something on film where they could steal a point. Kenny Dillingham said, "Let's do it." Noodle came down on the sideline about midway through the first quarter. He said, "I think we can do it." They did it, and we saw
Yeah.
what happened.
Yeah, I mean that shows you that Kenny Dillingham has trust for his assistant coaches, and that Jack Nudo's evaluating some things that he's seeing that are opportunities. And also the punting was a little bit. It started out kind of shaky for ASU. West Virginia had the really bad punting in that game, so it's kind of it's been rare to see ASU's opponent have much worse punting than ASU's been. But then Canyon Floyd, he did better at the end after McKenzie punted initially, and that was a struggle. I wanted to spend more time though, talking about the Jeff Sims performance. Jake, what did you make of the first half? West Virginia's playing mostly zone coverage. The pass protection is good, and he was kind of carving. He was dealing out there. He was carving them up.
Yeah, I mean the game plan for him was almost flipped completely on its axis compared to the Iowa State game, where he's running for 29 times, and now he's throwing a bunch more, and he became the first Sun Devil this season to throw for 3 touchdown passes. Neither he nor Levitt did it throughout the year, and it took him 30 minutes to do it. It took him a half.
Yeah,
and so, like you said, the pass protection was amazing. ASU had 3 of the 5 top PFF graded offensive linemen: Josh Atkins, Makua Pule, and Makai Stewart. Makai Stewart, a true freshman, going in there against the West Virginia defense and being one of the best offensive linemen in the Big 12 for a game. So that really helped Sims sit in the pocket, make his reads, find open players, and they were all over. Derek Eusebio had a career high 6 catches for, I think it was 74 yards and a touchdown. Those two have really strengthened in their bond after being on the second team together on offense at Camp T, and now helping lead this team with Levitt and Tyson being out. So Sims, I think he surprised a lot of people with this performance. I think after they knew that his strength was his legs, it was his arm and his pocket presence that was more of a question mark, and I think he answered that question this weekend.
Yeah, Kenny Dillingham said a year and a half ago that he thought Jeff Sims was an NFL caliber quarterback. Nebraska fans, they found the need to go ahead and spend a lot of time on social media making fun of that assessment. But Jeff Sims had 40 touchdowns he was responsible for at Georgia Tech in over a 3-year period that made him a high-profile transfer portal quarterback that led to him being able to get the opportunity at Nebraska. And then that didn't work out. He had a bunch of turnovers and never was comfortable within the scheme. But he showed flashes. Everybody can tell pretty clearly, even if you don't know football that well, he's relatively big and athletic, and he has a big arm, and he can throw the ball down the field. It was a lot more of the polishing from the pocket, decision-making, read progression, being accurate in intermediate throws that was a little bit fuzzy at times for him. And I feel like his decision to come back and play behind Sam Levitt, a lot of people, including myself, were a little bit curious about that in light of the fact that he could have gone and probably started somewhere else or would have had a good opportunity to start somewhere. And they showed against Iowa State that he had the ability to be a primary ball carrier, broke a school record for rushing yards by a quarterback. Mark Malone set back, in the 70s, late 70s. And then West Virginia, as we talked about, remember like a week ago, Gabby, Rich Rodriguez, he understands quarterback run game, and their defense, I think, was a lot more prepared for the direct QB runs. And so they decided to play in a way that forced ASU, I think, to be able to have to throw the ball a lot more. And Jalen Moss, who's come on recently, that evolution continued after he was sick and injured early on in the season and struggling, and now he's out there. And Malik McLean has continued to make some good progress, and Shimon Mateer has been very involved. He and Jeff Sims are pretty close off the field. They have a good relationship. You can see that Jeff Sims is, and Jordan Tyson's not out there, but you can see that Jeff Sims is very willing to spread the ball around and make use of his receivers. And I think that the offensive line protection that you reference and just their overall play, that really contributed to ASU's ability in the first half to get rolling. Now, the second half was a very, very different story. West Virginia switched to more man coverage. ASU's receivers struggled to get uncovered, and then they bogged down on some of their drive opportunities, and it didn't look nearly as good. They haven't played great throughout any of these games offensively. I still say that given the circumstances and their injury picture, that's a pretty good performance.
Yeah, and it wasn't like Jeff Sims wasn't evident on the ground either. He led the team with 81 rushing yards, so it was his arm that opened that up. And obviously, we saw in the second half when they switched to man coverage, ASU went to the ground a lot more, and Sims was taking a lot more direct snaps and read options. And while they weren't averaging a ton, maybe 3-4 yards per carry, they were still moving the ball somewhat well, and with Canyon Floyd averaging 50 yards per punt, which I think is his highest of the year, that really put West Virginia with their backs against the wall in terms of field position, although they did overcome that with that 90-yard touchdown on the 3rd and 27 screen pass, which I'm sure is keeping a lot of ASU defenders up this past
Probably
weekend.
Keeping Kenny Dillingham up, too. He said
Yeah,
that's the
that
second
too.
worst play he's ever been a coaching staff for a part of.
Yeah, 3rd and 27. That play to me was an effort play.
Mhm.
He was yelling at his players afterward. I think he was ticked off that everybody's like, oh, somebody else is going to make that tackle, because you kind of assume that. But a couple of guys overran the play and or didn't have the type of intensity that you need to getting the blocks or getting to the ball. And that was, if you take away the 2 long touchdowns that West Virginia had, 90 yards, 75 yards, that's like half of their yards in the game or more. And that's ASU had that was uncharacteristic, I would say, generally, although ASU did have the Mississippi State 3 plays that were catastrophic. But yeah, going back to the offensive line, when Ben Coleman was knocked out for the season, that was a very concerning thing, because Wade Helton was like their only other player that they had used in camp at center. He's a redshirt freshman. He had never played before. Makua Pule is a former walk-on, who is now elevated into a little bit more of an opportunity. And what we saw throughout that game was on the interior, they were using all those young guys, Helton, Pule, and Makai Stewart, quite a lot. In fact, Kyle Scott came out of the game for a good chunk as a senior at right guard, and they were going with all 3 of those young guys. And that, when 2 of them plus Josh Atkins were among the top 5 in the Big 12. Josh Atkins leading the way in the Big 12 in PFF grade, with Makai Stewart 4th and Makua Pule 5th. That was one of the most impressive things that I took from the game. Rewatching it again, just the caliber of the play. Makai Stewart, we've been talking about him a lot from spring ball till now. He's a very rare guy, but he struggled mightily against Iowa State when they played odd front and didn't know who the 4th pressure was going to be coming from. And it seemed like his head was on a swivel, and he was trying to figure things out rather than just control his gap. And that's the thing that I think is tough for a lot of young linemen when you're playing up against different types of schemes and maybe you're accustomed to from the high school level. But this was more of a traditional approach that West Virginia had at the point of attack, and he handled it extraordinarily well. Makua Pule, was it Songa Tuitele or somebody else who said that he reminds him a little bit of Lee Fautanu, and the strength isn't there quite yet, and the skill level and understanding isn't that there yet. But we're talking about a guy who's 2 years younger or 3 years younger than when Fautanu was making an impact at ASU. And so we know that ASU is going to be losing Maxi Honachor to the NFL draft. Kyle Scott's gone after this year. Ben Coleman's out of eligibility 7 years, and Josh Atkins, right? So they need a combination of young guys elevating and a couple of transfer portal players. And what the young players have done in recent weeks is show that, hey, maybe the coaches don't need to dip as much into the transfer portal as they otherwise would have. And that's a very positive sign when you have to replace so many of your starters, and there's only so much money to go around, as we're going to talk about later on.
Well, it's cool to see, too. It's kind of interesting how the storyline with the offensive line has evolved over the year. I mean, at the start of the season, it was like, okay, their entire left side, it's like, what's going to happen here? And then you had Ben Coleman at center, and then he moved over again, and then he got injured, and now you have all these young guys, and a bunch more question marks come up, and then, like you said, they're just having so much success in the top 5 graded Big 12 offensive linemen of this week.
Without Jordan Tyson and Sam Levitt. And that's the thing that I think people need to keep in mind when we all talked about the preseason expectations for ASU's offense and this team, and we threw out these records. What were you guys preseason? I had 10-2. What did you guys say?
I also had 10-2.
I said 11-1.
Okay. But listen, if ASU had everybody healthy, they probably beat Houston, right? Who knows? I mean, Mississippi State early in the season playing on the road, and I think they would have lost that game. But they might only have 1 or 2 losses at this point. Utah, maybe that would have been different if they had Sam Levitt. I don't know, maybe not.
Yeah, that was like the conditional that like defined all the fans' cautiously optimistic expectations for the year was, this team is so good on paper if it stays healthy.
Well, yeah. See, I so much luck is required. Like last season, Sam Levitt missed 1 game. Cam Scatterbo missed 1 game. Jordan Tyson got hurt only in the Territorial Cup. And pretty much almost everybody else that was super important stayed healthy. That makes it a lot easier. Something I posted in the Devil Sanctuary was that should ASU win its next 2 games and finish 9-3, to me, that would be almost in some ways more impressive than a 10-2 season with all those guys healthy, right? That I don't know if it'd be 11-1 worthy, probably not, but the schedule was also tougher than I think that we knew or we thought it might be going into the season. Nobody expected Houston to be as good as it's been. And some of these other teams that ASU's played have also been pretty good teams. It was only really when you got to the back couple games of the schedule where you get West Virginia and Colorado, and they're of a lesser caliber than pretty much everybody that ASU's played to this point.
West Virginia was the first team that ASU played that had a losing record when they played them. That just shows how much of a gauntlet that they went up against. And I would say that they came out with some pretty impressive wins, especially over Texas Tech, over teams like Baylor and TCU, who may have not been at the level people thought they were, but they were still very tough teams and have proven to be that throughout the season.
I agree.
And there was some point, it might have been after week 7, maybe it was week 6, where there was a stat that ASU was like the only team in the country to have played all their games so far at that point in the season against teams that were above or at 500.
Yeah.
And I think he was asked about it, and he was like, "Great, like it's great for us."
Yeah, he has a tendency to get very micro into what he's focused on in any given week, but of course he knew that their schedule had been really difficult.
I think it's funny when he like finds things out from media, like in a press conference.
Yeah.
He'll be like when Jeff Sims won AP National Player of the Week, he was like, "Oh, really? Like now?" Like, maybe I heard that. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he said, did that happen within like the last hour or so, something like that? Because, yeah, it's the life of a coach is not for the faint of heart. Like, these guys are working around the clock. His voice is perpetually hoarse.
I literally said in our post-game time, like, I don't know if I've ever heard his voice like at full strength.
Yeah, before the season starts.
I think it's been that way since he was a grad assistant.
I mean, probably, yeah. Even when he tries to yell at practice, it like sounds like a whisper because his voice is just.
There's a benefit. Shot. There's a benefit to being young, but that's why you need a whole lot of other people to do their jobs around you, as we will also talk about later on.
The life of a coach. They should write an album about that one as well. Well, we'll get into our Sly moves of the week after a quick word from our sponsor, drinkonthesly.com. And then you'll see Keith Abney's game-winning interception that sealed the 25-23 win over West Virginia for the Sun Devils.
never leaving, Greg. Contrary.
Well, Keith Abney with the game-winning interception, he said after the game that he had been like locking eyes with the quarterback all game long, and then he saw him on that one, and he was like, "I know it's coming," and then it happened.
Oh yeah, sorry. It was a great play. Like you said, they'd been attacking Keith Abney all game long, and he
which makes no sense.
Which makes very very little sense with how he's been performing this year. A lot of slant routes that he would be getting his arm into. His reaction time was very quick, and then sealed it with a game winning interception. He's been growing consistently all year long, and I sort of expected him to make this growth after what I saw last year, but I don't think I expected it on this level. And it's been very impressive to see how he's been playing this year.
Yeah, I actually had a vote for the Big 12 preseason awards this year, and I put Keith Abney on my first team because
That's motion, Chris.
Listen, I guess, but I did expect that. I saw just a different level of him being locked in the offseason, and I thought he was, Xavier Alford's a really great player, and I knew that he's a first teamer last year. I knew he was ASU's best returning guy in the secondary, but Keith Abney was like pushing for that in the offseason, and I think he has he's the second highest overall grade of all corners or nickels by PFF, and some other outlets maybe have him higher than that, and I think he's in the top 10 nationally. And they did get him. West Virginia, anticipating his increasing confidence and willingness to try to jump routes, which he's been good at. They ran a sluggo, a little slant and go that beat him for a 40-yard completion earlier in the game. And you could just see how frustrated that he was when that happened, because it's not really like him to give up anything. He hasn't given up a touchdown all year. Now he has committed a few penalties, knowing that he was probably going to give up a touchdown had he not committed the penalty, or a couple of them maybe borderline. But a lot of people are talking about his future and whether or not he will go to the NFL draft. And so this is, I think, an important conversation here. I was asked about this earlier on Arizona Sports on the radio today, and because there's some mocks out there that have him in the first or second round. And I just want to say to ASU fans, I'm pretty confident that Abney is more likely a middle round pick. And the reason is because even though ASU lists him at 6 foot, he's about 5'10". Like
I was gonna say,
he's about 5'10". And so the corners that don't have those like stature, they're likely, most of them are going to play inside. Not all. Like Jack Jones, not a tall guy, super twitchy, plays outside, but not a first or second round pick. And Shrew Jr. hasn't played nickel, and I think more likely he would be a third, fourth round pick. And so the question then becomes is, should Keith Abney return to ASU, maybe move inside to nickel next year with Javen Robinson and Rodney Bimage? Rodney Bimage is, I'm just going to put it out there right now, he is as good of a pro prospect as any of the young guys on the roster. He has first or second round upside in a couple years. And ASU could have those three guys starting for one of the best corner nickel combinations that we've seen in recent history. So that's an option. Or he could go and try to play well at the Shrine Bowl or something like that, where they play him at nickel and he gets a lot of motion from scouts who are seeing like him elevate in that respect, and that could be a confidence building thing, given his stature is going to come in at a 5'10". And I don't know what the right choice is for him. I think that is a much more difficult choice, a decision that has to be made, than anybody else who's an underclassman on the roster, because Jordan Tyson very easy decision to go. He's going to be a first rounder, more than likely. Sam Levitt, his stock dropped a lot, and he's not going to be a first or second rounder. So he's 80, 90% coming back to college. CJ Fight, really good nose tackle. I think he can be a starter or certainly play at the NFL level, but he's not going to be, I don't think, a day one or day two pick. So he's probably going to come back. There's nobody else that really is in this category that we're talking about. So ASU fans, Keith Abney's the guy to watch. I think we've laid out what the options are for him that make a lot of sense. He's a Barrett Honors College guy. Kenny Dillingham talked a lot about that today. His intangibles are off the charts. Phenomenal player. I'm not taking anything away from what he's accomplished this season and how good he is. I think he's arguably the best corner that we've seen in a decade at ASU. Kobe Williams is really good in that stretch. That maybe is the only one that I'd put in that category. Even Chase Lucas, who's on an NFL team, has not been as good, in my opinion, as what we've seen this year. And so now it's like a decision that he's going to have to evaluate and see if he feels like he can squeeze out another round or two by coming back to play nickel, or whether nickels, who don't tend to get drafted in the first or second round usually anyways, whether that upside doesn't really exist for him as he perceives it, and then he might decide to go. This is something that we're going to be revisiting, I'm sure, within the next month or so.
Well, absolutely. And to your point of, he's Barrett Honors College, the intangibles, how he behaves off the field. Him and Kyson Brown are like this. And they made like a curriculum for incoming players, like freshmen and transfers, of like the city of Tempe and like the ASU, all the ASU happenings.
But I didn't see this.
You didn't see this? No. I don't remember. It was an assistant coach, I believe. I don't remember who we were talking to at the time. It was towards the beginning of the season. But him and Kyson Brown made like basically a curriculum of like which Walmart to go to, where the nearest Target is. Like basically, it was like a lifestyle like handbook for people who are like, or for players who were new to Tempe and to Arizona. So
sounds like what Kerry Crowley did for Cronkite students, former intern of ours, 10 years ago. He was like famous for which professors to take or not take, which classes to avoid or not, and other sort of lessons. And he put together a podcast series where he interviewed a lot of people. But that's not surprising at all that those two guys would do that. They're super tight. They are great guys, and they have everything that you would kind of be looking for in the players. And Dillingham also, to that point, he said today that the number of Barrett Honors College players that they have is going to be increasing. He said that he wouldn't be surprised if they end up having 20 at some point in the near future, maybe 20% of the roster. And I think that they're trying to go more of that high IQ, intelligent, football intelligence, high achieving in school, work ethic, and intangibles, just box checking guys. And I think that's a really great approach, especially in the transfer portal era, where a lot of guys are just kind of looking for whatever best opportunity, and they're 1-year mercenaries. Like, go here for this money and then go here. And it's hard to build the right culture that you want. And the thing that you're talking about, Gabby, about having a curriculum, that is a culture building thing that you're trying to do.
It's a character thing, really. It might have been actually Kyson Brown who said that. I'm going to look as we play this clip. But our offensive move of the week is, to your point earlier, Jeff Sims really spreading around his receiving option, Shimon Mateer, with the first touchdown. And then our offensive move of the week this week is that Derek Sabio touchdown. He hasn't had one since Arizona in the Teacup last year, so almost a full calendar year ago. And then that last one to Raleek Brown. So we'll check that out now.
It was amazing seeing Derek go out there and score, especially me and Derek. We came in here last year during camp, this year during camp, we was with the twos, and it was just me and him, so coming out here and throwing him a touchdown, it was amazing to see that.
Well, a nice little interaction in the post game between Jeff Sims and Derek Eusebio after the fact. They said it's, kind of a testament to the work they put in. They were two guys so at the beginning of the year nobody really thought of, I suppose, and then they go and do that when ASU is kind of still in the hunt towards the end of the season.
Luke Lemner wrote a really nice story about the Jeff Sims, Derek Eusebio confidence, belief that they have in the next man up mentality. Jordan Crook also spoke to it in the post-game press conference. I've always been struck by how this particular ASU team is very focused. They got the blinders on, and they're not really worried that much about what people are saying about them. I think that comes from the coaching staff more than anything. They just feel like the next man up mentality is something that they completely believe in. And when guys go down, other guys are going to be able to service those roles and do a good job. And there was, I think you mentioned earlier, like a lot of people when Jeff Sims was going to be the starting quarterback for the rest of the season, they were like, okay, season's over. Let's figure out about
Pack it up.
Let's figure out about keeping Sam Levitt and what can happen next year and all that stuff. And these guys were not having any of that. Like they've had bad performances this year. Don't get me wrong. Like they laid an egg at Utah, and then Houston was an uncharacteristically bad home performance on offense, especially in special teams, for the first 3 quarters of that game. So we're not saying here that they've done as well as they could have done, all things considered. But Derek Eusebio is like the model. Like we're talking about guys that behind the scenes are doing everything that they can to be the best versions of themselves, and the way that reflects on a Saturday. And I don't know that anybody personifies that more than Derek Eusebio on the offensive side of the ball. He is an extraordinarily consistent practice player. Even a couple years ago when he wasn't playing at all, he never had drops. He was super reliable when he was out there making plays. And I don't think for us who are at practice all the time, it's a surprise whatsoever to see Eusebio go out there and make a bunch of plays and have his career best performance, because we've seen that that's something that he's capable of on any given Saturday.
Yeah. Like you said, that he's super steady. I'm not shocked when he's the guy that Sims goes to, because he's reliable. He's just one of those guys in the slot where his footwork is good, his hands are good, and that's also a testament to his coach Hines Ward, who is always saying the ball. Like if he sees a drop in practice, he's not happy whatsoever, and it's just a testament to the entire receiving core of stepping up with Tyson being out, not really missing much of a step, and still providing weapons out there for Sims to look to.
And credit Sims for surveying the field and adhering to what the play concepts are and trying to make sure that he's getting the ball where it should go on any of these plays. Like, I don't know, like if you guys agree, but I think a lot of fans have seen that the offense has done well at times with Jeff Sims in a different kind of a way than Sam Levitt. Like Sam Levitt is really trying to get the ball to Jordan Tyson, and he's scrambling a lot. For the marker when he's not seeing Jordan Tyson. There was a little bit more Shimon Matera that got involved, but he's the what we're seeing with Jeff Sims is just more of a determined effort to be able to get the ball to where the opportunities exist on a play-to-play basis.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I would say it's leaving defenses guessing more of where the ball is going to go. They knew that it was going to go to Tyson when Levitt was in there and Tyson was in there. It was just a matter of if they could stop it, which sometimes they couldn't. But with Sims under a helm, is he going to run? Is he going to throw? Is he going to dump it off to Shimon Matera? Is he going to find Eusebio? Is he going to find Malik Brown out of the backfield? Like it's much less one-dimensional, but it's also just as effective.
Yeah, and Hines Ward said earlier in the season, too, when Derek Eusebio first started getting his reps in this year in games, that he's a reliable guy, Jake. Like you said, he's consistent, and he's always where he needs to be to make the play, and he does so consistently. So I guess what more could you ask for as a coach from one of your players? But we're going to get into some of Kenny Dillingham's quotes from the past few days. He said very, very emphatically after Saturday's win, I'm not leaving. I was never leaving. So we'll kind of get into all of that. And then he had some comments today just about kind of NIL, and we'll get into whole changing landscape of college football and how things are going after a quick break from our presenting sponsor, Jones Auto Centers.
For over 60 years, the Glenn Jones name has been recognized for integrity and honesty.
From the Jones Auto Centers in Wickenburg.
Jones Ford Verde Valley.
Take a nice country drive out to Buckeye.
When you're talking about Arizona's best, you're talking about the Jones Auto Group. It's quick, fast, strong.
I want to invite you to visit our new facility in Casa Grande and enjoy our country-style way of doing business. We're the Joneses.
For over 60 years, the Glenn Jones name has been recognized for integrity and honesty.
From the Jones Auto Centers in Wickenburg.
Jones Ford Verde Valley.
Take a nice country drive out to Buckeye.
When you're talking about Arizona's best, you're talking about the Jones Auto Group. It's quick, fast, strong.
I want to invite you to visit our new facility in Casa Grande and enjoy our country-style way of doing business. We're the Joneses.
Welcome back inside Rack Scottsdale for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers, who you just heard from. So if you're in the market for a new or a used vehicle, you should check them out. Pretty hospitable, first-class service over there, Chris.
Yeah, get it done. Parker Jones has been as big of a supporter of ASU's NIL efforts, as we're going to talk about here, as anyone, going back to putting Jane Daniels in a vehicle the first year that was allowed to happen, I believe, or even before that. He was involved with Emory Jones. I think having a vehicle was the first year that was allowed. So yeah, he does a great job. Big supporter of ASU athletics.
Well, Chris, you teased on the board before Kenny Dillingham really did come out and say, I'm not leaving, that he was gonna, make that decision, say it as firmly and concretely as he did. So if you're not subscribed to Sun Devil Source, we're getting all this information first before anyone. So if you want to stay in the know, like we always say, what are you doing? Get on it. So we'll hear what he had to say, Chris, and then I'll let you give your thoughts into that.
To the betrayal article, I was never leaving. I never said I was leaving. This is home, but you do have to continue to push. And my job running a program is to push and push and push until you can't push anymore. And if I didn't do that, I'd be cheating my players, I'd be cheating my staff, I'd be cheating the fan base, I'd be cheating everybody in the city, I'd be cheating the local businesses that feed off of us winning and then they, sell more beer, right? I'd be cheating everybody. So my number one goal always is to do whatever I can to push the envelope for Arizona State football. I go on the radio Friday morning and I don't have all the information. And so Graham was right. We met on Friday with, our, admin and people who represent Dr. Crow. And I have a lot of confidence that they're all in. I have a lot of confidence that our administration is pushing the chips to the table on winning in football here. The conversations we have, I think everybody's got to start understanding that this university is supporting football. This university is really doubling down on what we're doing right now. And that's such a relief, for me. I just want to be able to push this place to its limit. And sometimes if I can do some things that, people don't like, but that's not my job to be liked. I never came in here in a press conference and said, I want to be liked. I said, I want to activate the Valley. I want to win games. I want to get this program better, right? And sometimes that is ruffling feathers, and it is what it is. But I know this. I know our university is behind us. They're behind this program. They're behind winning games. And I can say that with a lot of confidence that they're going to support this place at a level that can win and compete in the Big 12.
So there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes. And fans, they just decipher what they consume, what they see and what they hear, right? I think people watching this probably know that we reported before Iowa State that Kenny Dillingham went into some of the meeting rooms and he told his players that he was going to be back next year. And what you're trying to do as a head coach is you're trying to instill confidence in your players that there's going to be continuity moving forward to have their minds be settled about their return to play for you next season. Okay. At the same time as that's going on, a coach is trying to push behind the scenes to make sure that they're getting the type of support and resources that every head coach would want. And that's easier at some blue blood programs around the country, the ones that are always or often in the top 10 or top 15, than it is at a place like ASU. And those two messages or those two realities, they exist concurrently, but they're a little bit at odds. Because if a head coach comes out and says that he feels like all the support is great and it's all there and everything is hunky-dory, but really he's working behind the scenes to try to get other resources or assets, he's undercutting his own ability to do that in public. Okay? We're in the first year of revenue sharing. We've talked a lot about this. I still think that a lot of fans and even, unfortunately, a lot of media don't understand the difference between revenue sharing and NIL. NIL came first. It's been around for the last several years, like 4 years. NIL is the ability for players to make money off their name, image, and likeness. And NIL also enabled boosters, businesses, whoever, to line the pockets of these players to essentially buy them in for not what would be your typical purposes, like the reputable purposes, right? Business reasons. That's not revenue share. Revenue share is all these schools have the ability to give their players up to $20.5 million, or in the case of scholarship expansion schools like ASU, about $18 million. Most schools, including ASU, are giving about 75% of that to football. That's $13.5 million. Okay? But the House settlement that everybody agreed to is supposed to force schools to adhere to this new entity called the College Sports Commission to be the arbiter of fair market valuation on NIL deals moving forward. And what's happening is that while the schools all have a close amount of money in revenue share, NIL is very uneven. And the reason it's very uneven is because schools are going around the House settlement agreements that is supposed to then force all these NIL to be evaluated through this new entity. And Kenny Dillingham, like all coaches, knows that this is happening. And so he was never asking, as I interpret the comments, he was never asking for more revenue share money because ASU is already giving the most that it can in its circumstance. He was asking for the university, which has all kind of prominent benefactors giving many millions of dollars annually. He was asking for the Michael Crow and Jim Rund, who oversees a lot of things, including athletics above Graham Rossini, who's the AD. He was trying to get them to understand that ASU leadership needed to have its benefactors understand about the importance of NIL and be supporting as much as they can. So as an example, ASU has, and then there's other ways that could help. So as an example, ASU is trying to get money for its football practice facility, a new one, right? Graham Rossini was on our show. We talked a lot about that. And they have a bunch of several $1 million that have been committed to that. Well, in a perfect world, that money would, instead of going to the football practice facility, the university would fund the practice facility with its benefactors, of which they're giving a lot of money already. And then that money would instead be used through those the business interests of those people for NIL purposes, right? That's kind of what's being done at a lot of places around the country. And I think what happened is that the meeting that Dillingham talked about happening the day before the game on Friday, it was about feeling like that support that which exists everywhere. All the blue blood programs around the country, they have their biggest benefactors are giving money to athletics and giving money to the campus. Maybe more to campus than athletics or whatever, but they're giving to both in big numbers. And I think that what he expressed was confidence from that meeting that they're going to be pushing people supporting athletics as well as campus.
And in this era of college football, you need both to succeed. And
Yeah.
what the House settlement and the NCAA was trying to do was say, okay, here's your revenue sharing. And then by forming this college sports commission, it was all the NIL deals basically going through that they're making sure they were fair market value. Essentially, okay, it is, you're using your name, image, or likeness for something to prevent kind of doing what Texas Tech did this year. And that's what a lot of people are saying is like, okay, this is one and done for Texas Tech. Like if they can't get it done this year, like it's never going to happen for them, because this year they just had a billionaire pumping money into their program before this whole thing was formed. And now schools, especially those big blue blood programs, like you said, are sort of tiptoeing their way around it, playing with the odds a little bit. You made the analogy in our post-game show. It's like if everybody's going 75 and a 55, the police aren't going to pull everybody over.
Well, because the agents who represent these players, they're not going to listen to this entity that doesn't even have hardly any employees and hasn't punished anyone and has no teeth, because it's not even like a fully up and running thing. They're not going to listen to them say, hey, your player can't make more money by going to another school. They're going to be like, sue us. And the schools are going to be like, we didn't know that this person was giving this amount of money through this agent to this player. So there's like a plausible deniability angle to it. But the reality is that the big gap that exists between the high, highly known and widely always in the top 10 programs and everybody else has been narrowed due to revenue sharing, but not completely because of this NIL thing that's still going on, that is violating the spirit of the House rules. And that's where Kenny Dillingham's next comment comes in that we're going to play here.
I want it out there that the university and the president and the athletic department is backing football. I think that's important. I don't know if I've ever publicly come out and said that. I've always said I want to be better. They are supporting us. I think where we're still missing is we're still missing in the local businesses. We're still missing in the big donor base. Our casual fans, unbelievable. Sold out every game. That's unbelievable. Are you kidding? The sold out crowds. It's loud. Like people on the radio are talking about us. We're activating the 99%. Right, we are. It's awesome. Like this year's been remarkable from that perspective. The university is now doubling down. They're in. Where we're still missing, and it's such a vital piece, is the city, the businesses in the city, and the big-time high-end donor base. That's where we're still searching to get connected here in some way, shape, or form. And I haven't done a good enough job creating that connection yet. But from a fan perspective, from 99% of people we are in an unbelievable direction, and the university is 100% behind.
Well, you need both to succeed in college football, and Kenny Dillingham obviously feels confident that he's getting both, and he's calling for more from local businesses, NIL, as we just heard. But we'll get into the Colorado first look, 6 p.m. Mountain Time this Saturday over at Folsom Field in Boulder. All three of us were your crew, so you're stuck with us for that Saturday game. I'm very excited to make the trip there. It's a very pretty field. I'm from Colorado. I've never been to a game there, but Jake, I know you've been doing a lot of research, so can you kind of give us the lowdown on CU's offense?
Yeah, this is a very different look Colorado team in general than people saw last year. They went from 4-8 in Deion Sanders' first year to 9-4 with Shedeur Sanders, his son, taking snaps, and the Heisman winner Travis Hunter lining up on both sides of the field, doing everything for them. So those were two very big hits, and that's been pretty adamant so far in the year. Now sitting at 3-7, they're coming off a bye week. And the week before that, they lost 29-22 to West Virginia, where true freshman quarterback Julian Lewis made a second collegiate start, and he was sacked 7 times. So you're not going to be very successful if your quarterback's getting hit that much. But he did pass for a season high 299 yards, so that's kind of a glimpse into the future for Colorado fans. I'll get into that a little later. But on this offense, Pat Shermer, the offensive coordinator, he runs a gunslinging offense. That's what won Shedeur Sanders all the awards last year, passed for over 4,000 yards, won the John Unitas Golden Arm Award, was top 10 in Heisman voting with Travis Hunter. And this year, there's been a bit of a quarterback carousel for the Buffaloes. It started with Liberty transfer Caden Salter was pretty high. I think he was a 8.89 graded transfer in the portal, very, very sought after, and Deion Sanders was able to land him after many thought that Julian Lewis would kind of be Shedeur Sanders' successor, and it seemed that he would have to wait another year and just redshirt his true freshman year that a lot of recruits do. But the biggest thing was, for the first time in 8 years, there would not be somebody with Sanders on the back of their jersey taking snaps for a Deion Sanders-led offense. He coached Shedeur all 4 years in high school at Trinity, and then over at Jackson State, and of course at Colorado. So that was, I think, a big adjustment for Deion Sanders, not having both of his sons on the field with him and being the only Sanders out there. But it started off this year with Caden Salter after week 1, a loss to Georgia Tech, 27-20. I found out that he was praying about his quarterback situation, so that's probably not a good sign if you're sending out prayers about your arguably your most important position on the field.
What should I do?
But apparently his answer was to start third string Ryan Staub. He started him in the second game against Delaware. He said that he was going to give Staub and Lewis two series each, but he just went with Staub the entire time, and that only lasted until next week when he lost to Houston, and then he went back to Salter, which he did all the way up until the U of A week after he lost 53-7 to Utah. And so he saw a true freshman and said, "Hey, let's see what you got." Passed for 299 yards against West Virginia. But now the biggest thing for him is he's played 3 games. There's 2 games left on the season. I think the obvious thing is to only play him in one more game to preserve that red shirt and get another year of him. But now it comes down to playing the matchup. Which do you think is a better game for him to succeed in, this week or next week when you go on the road to K-State? Probably this week would be something like that because of the home atmosphere. But that's going to be the biggest question for ASU, is who they're going up against, because the quarterback is the most important position when you're playing Colorado. Their run game is pretty much not there. Salters leads the team with 458 rushing yards. He's a dual threat quarterback, and they're second to last in the Big 12 with 1,200 rushing yards. It's the first time under Deion Sanders that they've eclipsed 1,000 rushing yards. They had 800 in back-to-back years his first 2 years.
Yeah, let's just highlight one thing that you said. The offensive line is bad, really bad.
Very bad.
That's the whole thing. Doesn't really matter who your quarterback is if you can't run the ball and you can't protect for your quarterback. And especially, they're putting Lewis in a terrible situation. He's still the highest graded PFF player on their offense, even with how bad that their offensive line has been and their rushing attack. And that's just illustrative of the bad situation that they've put him in. This isn't like last year where they found some money and they cobbled it together and they were able to put some offensive linemen in front of Shedeur Sanders and they were better. This thing is smoke and mirrors right now. And I really feel like, from what I've seen in recent weeks, that the team has almost looked like they're not trying as hard anymore, which, that's a really bad thing. And have they sort of tuned out a lot of the rhetoric of Deion Sanders? He's extremely rhetorical, a lot of kind of just, comments.
Preachy, kind of sounding comments.
A lot of comments that don't really have a lot of meaning or substance. And that doesn't fix, he's like, "I hope we get some more dogs in here. We need some dogs to fix this." And I'm just like, people come for culture or they come for money, right? And I don't see a culture at Colorado right now that looks like an ASU culture. And I think that it's because, again, they've gone the mercenary route. They've gone the money route, flash and glitzy kind of a thing. For whatever, maybe it's a misperception on my part, but it seems more like a style than a substance. And I think you need substance to be able to overcome not having money consistently in some of these other issues. And so what I see is just a great opportunity for ASU to be able to, with its really good run defense and its ability to get after quarterbacks, I see a freshman quarterback, I see a pretty good opportunity in front of him.
Yeah, for Colorado, I think the most important thing is retaining Lewis. Colorado's athletic director, Rick George, announced that he would step down from his roles after the academic year, and he's the guy who brought in Sanders, who gave him the contract extension through 2029. That's over $10 million annually, so that's a pretty expensive buyout if it doesn't work out with Sanders before his contract is up.
He's getting out of the way of what happened at LSU. That's all. We need a whole nother podcast to talk about these coaches having these contracts where if they get fired, they're due all of the money, no offset clauses.
Mm-hmm.
I think in some cases that might make sense. In other cases, it doesn't really make a lot of sense. I do feel good about saying at the time that I didn't think that Deion Sanders would have been a good hire for ASU, because this thing is not looking too good right now. They might get it turned around. I could be wrong, but yeah. And that also doesn't mean that ASU's not like gone and blown out anybody, like for the most part, on the road. So it's still tough to win a game in the Big 12, and we'll see what happens.
Well, it's Colorado's senior night as well on Saturday, so I don't know if they're going to do it at halftime, if there's going to be any sort of TV delays there, but I know you guys will have your Thursday podcast with Jakob this week for a much more in-depth look at this Colorado game. If you're bringing on the CU beat writer for 24/7, I know you
Adam Munster Tiger, he went to ASU. In fact,
his last name is
Munster Tiger.
That's a cool last name.
Yeah, I've known him since 2004 or 3. So
we weren't born.
Yeah,
I was not born.
I was not born either. Don't worry.
Let's not rub it in right now. We've been doing this a while. Yes, we have. But yeah, no, he's a great guy, and he does a phenomenal job. So I'm looking forward to having him on the Thursday podcast.
Well, tons of insight there, of course. Make sure you catch that Thursday podcast as well prior to the game. And then I do just want to take a quick second, thank the rest of our sponsors. drinkontheslide.com. You can scan that QR code. It's our referral code for 20% off.
Yeah.
And then El Bandito Yankee Tequila, as well as Devil's Liquor, just off of Apache and McClintock in Tempe. You can find Drink on the Slide there. El Bandito Yankee Tequila and Devil's Vodka. So a big thank you.
All lined up right here in front of you.
All lined up right there in front of us. You can see it for yourself. It's beautiful. Okay, so we're gonna get into last thing, the Big 12 championship kind of odds, what the race is looking like. The talk of Tempe here as of late. So this is the top 6 teams in the Big 12. Texas Tech and BYU each have 1 loss, and then Cincinnati just lost to U of A this past week, fell out of the rankings, and then so the Bearcats, Houston, Utah, and ASU all 5-2, each with 2 games left on the season. All 6 of these teams have 2 games left, except for Texas Tech, who is on a bye this week, and then will play West Virginia to close out the season.
Yeah. So bottom line here is, if you want to know as an ASU fan who you should root for, Cincinnati needs to beat BYU for sure. That has to happen, unless in some alternate universe Texas Tech loses to West Virginia, which that's about a 5% chance of that happening, I would say, on the road. So Cincinnati, they're probably 35-40% likely to beat BYU games at Cincinnati. So that's a positive thing for Cincinnati's chances to win that game. And then if Cincinnati wins that game, then the next most important thing that would benefit ASU would be Cincinnati losing the following week to TCU. If both of those things happen and ASU wins its next 2 games, ASU is going to go to the Big 12 championship more than likely. If Cincinnati beats TCU after losing to BYU, or after beating BYU, pardon me, if Cincinnati beats BYU and then beats TCU, okay, in that scenario, then ASU would need Houston and Utah to each lose at least one of their last 2 games. And then that would be another pathway for ASU. That's pretty unlikely to happen. I think Utah's been playing very well and is a clear favorite in its remaining games. Houston could easily win its remaining games. So this week, biggest thing is root for Cincinnati to beat BYU, ASU to win. Those games are going on simultaneously, maybe 1 to 2 hour kickoff apart. So there's going to be a lot of scoreboard watching or channel flipping or picture in picture or whatever it is that you like to do. And then we'll see what happens with the scenarios for the following week.
It's very funny because it feels like last year they were kind of in a similar scenario. They start off conference play 2-2. They go on to win 5 games in a row, and all these things just fall into place. So it may seem like a lot, but it's not too far off from the position that they were in at this point last year.
Yeah, I think the odds are a little bit worse. Like, I don't remember, like, at this point what I would have said the odds were for ASU with 2 games left. Right now, it's probably like a 10% thing, maybe 15%. But after this week, if ASU wins and Cincinnati beats BYU, then it becomes a very, very good chance.
Well, I think this past week might have been the first time ASU fans were rooting for Arizona to beat Cincinnati, because that helps ASU. So that's all we have this week on the Sun Devil Source podcast. Like I said, that Thursday podcast with Colorado beat writer, and then Jacob's going to host that one. That'll be your full in-depth look as to this CU game. Practice Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll have you covered all throughout there. And then Friday morning, we're headed off to Colorado. We thank Bill Rogers for the travel accommodations as well. Big thank you.
Big thank you. Well, yeah, we can tease that now. Bill Rogers, who's an ASU booster. He's a friend of Kevin Stewart. A lot of people know Kevin Stewart, long time right-hand man for me. I think they were frat brothers, maybe. Bill Rogers owns a mortgage business that's in like a lot of different places around the country, and he's a booster, and he invited us on a charter plane with, I think, maybe around 10 or so other people who are going to the game who are ASU fans. First time for me
First time
that's
for me as
happened.
well.
Obviously for you guys. Thank you, Bill Rogers. Really appreciate it. Looking forward to throwing that up on socials and everything, and on Saturday.
We got our itinerary today, this morning, and the company that's the like jet company that we're flying with is like TikTok famous.
Oh,
like
really?
one of their like salespeople like films himself like
I've seen him.
Yeah, right.
He's the most excited that Jake's ever been on a podcast, right there.
Well, I saw it and I was scrolling.
Okay,
I was like, oh my gosh! Like this guy, he deals with all the like influencers and famous people and films. And he like films himself like booking all the flights and stuff. So I saw it and I was like, wait, this is so cool. So big thank you to Bill for the travel accommodations. Yeah. He gave us some goodie bags as well before the game. So very big thank you to you if you're watching or listening.
Also, Gabby, thank you to the tailgaters who welcomed me and Jacob Brooks in. We got that up on our YouTube if you want to check out like some of ASU's best tailgates. We put together a package, Jacob did, and I think that turned out cool. And we're going to get to more, hopefully for the Territorial Cup, but certainly if not, then next year where we there's plenty more that we want to showcase.
Well, it'll be an exciting time for sure these last 2 weeks. Sun Devils not in control of their own fate, so make sure you're watching those Big 12 games around the league, especially with those other top 6 teams. We'll have you covered this week, and of course that CU game on Saturday, and then we'll be right back here on Monday to break down everything that happened in Boulder. So until then, Gabby Chernoff, Chris Cartman, and Jake Sloan for the Sun Devil Source podcast presented by Jones Auto Centers.